All right, good morning, or middle morning. So we're in the middle of a revolution right now, and it's a business revolution, and it's changing the way that we work. It's changing the way that we choose to work, and it's being driven primarily by three major global trends. The first is a need for collaboration, and this is being driven by changing power. It's a shift to a stakeholder mindset, and this is how we can tactically do good in the world. And lastly, it's a shift from material wealth to experiential wealth. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these global trends and what we're doing at Warby Parker to sort of tap into it. And I would encourage you, as we're sort of talking, to think about how can we, as leaders at our own organizations, figure out how can we push this forward, this movement forward. I firmly believe that's imminent, but we in this room can help it push it faster and bigger and have a bigger impact. And frankly, if we want to be able to compete in the future, we're going to need to embrace this. So the first thing to know is power is changing. And what's happening is it's fragmenting. So if you think about almost any institution today, it's actually less powerful than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. Think about broadcast news, right? Walter Cronkite, the voice of the nation, what he said, major influence across the country. Then there were three, Dan Rather, Peter Jennings, Tom Brokaw. And think about the nightly news today and just how there are so many outlets for news. Think about sort of how brands are shifting and how they have more or less influence. Moses Naim sort of talks about this sort of erosion of power and end of power. Because we have the office of the presidency, everything, it's just a little less powerful. And what's happening is that the nature of power and the way that it works is shifting. So it's actually moving from this old power paradigm of zero sum, of it's held by the few, it's inaccessible. I can transfer to you, you can transfer it sort of back to me. This idea of currency to current, where it flows and it ebbs and it moves. Think about sort of Airbnb, right? And how that's grown and now worth $10 billion, bigger than Intercontinental, Marriott, Hyatt. Think about Kickstarter, right? And where it derives its power from, and the fact that it now funds more cultural projects and to a greater extent than the National Endowment of the Arts, right? This power dynamic is shifting. Governments are toppling faster, brands are falling faster. Just think of Nokia and RIM and their position of dominance, right, a few years ago relative to today. We need to embrace this new power paradigm. And not that sort of all old power is bad, right? Think about Apple and the App Store, right? I'm guessing that the vast majority of us are using those products every single day, and it's good, but it's a closed system. Think about the Nobel Peace Prize, right? Great public good, but it's top down, right? New York Times. This change is happening, and sort of the tension between it is what we're going to have to be dealing with over the next few years. Now, the question is, how do you handle this? Well, it's through communication, right? And it's through collaboration. And it was actually during a discussion last year that we talked about this as sort of brand stewards, that at the end of the day, it's not sort of our brand, right? It's all of our brand. It's a sort of this broader interaction. And in the past, right, it was always, we needed to do surveys, right? You can always say, well, my brand is this, but at the end of the day, it's what other people perceive it to be. But I think what's different now is that it's participatory and that other people are dictating what your brand is and helping to evolve it. So we need to accept that. And the trick to this is really this idea of collaboration, right? And just the same tools that we use to create highly functional, high-performance teams in our office, we need to be doing that with the broader public, right? We need to build trust through transparency, right? The more vulnerable we are as humans, the deeper relationships we build, and we need to do that as brands. We find that when we put together an annual report, right, usually like the most boring document on the planet, all financial statements, instead we create this interactive infographic where people can take a peek into what it's like at Warby Parker and learn. My favorite fact is that one of our employees actually held Michael Jackson's baby blanket. Not the blanket, but the actual baby name blanket. Right? And what does that tell you about Warby Parker and the people that we hire, right? And the brand and what you want to buy into. This simple annual report that we wanted to initially use just to engage with customers ended up leading to our 3 highest consecutive days of sales at the time. So again, you let people in, right, and you start to collaborate with them, and sort of this magical change happens. The next sort of big thing that we see happening is this rise of stakeholder mentality. And it's not that sort of people's inherent nature has changed, right? People have always wanted to do good in the world, but now because we have so much access to information, right, we are compelled to act. When you see somebody drowning, you must jump into action. And the question is, well, then how we as leaders, as running these companies, these departments, can we actually actualize that? And we think about this in a stakeholder model. How do we make decisions, right, that used to be only driven by how it impacts the bottom line? And now it's thinking about more than just shareholders, it's about stakeholders, thinking about customers, employees, the community at large, the environment. At Warby Parker, when we think about customers, it's about providing $95 glasses instead of $500, free shipping and free returns. We were going to do that no matter what because we thought that that was going to create a better customer experience. Then we figured out, how do we make this work financially? For our employees, it's about how do we create a learning environment that they're going to grow and thrive, 360 reviews on a quarterly basis, monthly informal feedback sessions, right? People are hungry, they want to grow, and you need to be building your company like that. From an environmental standpoint, how do we mitigate our sort of negative environmental impacts? Because we are using energy to produce our glasses to ship them overseas. So we purchase carbon offsets. We track it religiously, trying to figure out how can we lower it ourselves, but then also find ways like purchasing carbon offsets to mitigate those impacts even further. And then from the community at large, it's to provide a pair of glasses for every pair that we sell, because at the end of the day, 700 million people need glasses and don't have access to them. And how are we as sort of a species sort of failing that 800 years since the invention of glasses, does not everybody on the planet have a pair? Now it would be easy to just say, hey, we're going to go, parachute in, get big containers, distribute tons of glasses. But at times, good intentions have unintended consequences. So how can we be thoughtful and deliberate in every single thing that we do? So for us, we work with a nonprofit that I used to run that trains low-income men and women to actually give eye exams and then sell glasses at an affordable price, often just a couple dollars. So that way they have the economic incentive to provide those glasses on an ongoing basis, right? Because people's glasses break, their prescriptions change, they need new glasses. But also it forces us to treat people not as needy beneficiaries, but as value-conscious consumers. And when you do that, you actually start designing for their needs. And you find that no matter how rich you are, right, you care how you look, fashion matters, and you'd rather be blind than wear a pair of used 1970s cat eyes, right? Because your friends and neighbors are going to ridicule you just as, they'd bust your chops if you were here in LA or New York. So when you think about sort of driving that sales, because we always want to come back to that, and how does that relate to doing good in the world? Well, to be customer first, you need to be employee first. And what we're seeing is that over 80% of millennials list sort of doing good or mission above compensation when they're deciding where to apply for jobs. So if you want to be getting the top talent out there today, but more importantly in the next 5 to 10 years, right, you're going to have to be mission driven. And it has to be a broader mission. It's this stakeholder mindset. One of the things I'm most proud of is that at Warby Parker, on your 3rd year anniversary, we actually send you down to Guatemala and you get to see some of the work in action. And it's not that they can really get involved because they're not trained professionals, and that's the thing, international development work is really hard, but they get to see it in action and they get to bond, and then they come back and it's just amazing how more engaged they are and the energy that it brings to the office. It's super powerful. And we're just one company of many. There's this whole B Corporation movement. And the question is, as an executive, how do I make sometimes these tough decisions to purchase carbon offsets right when it hits that bottom line? And what's powerful that's happening on the B Corp sort of movement, and there's some people in the room here who have been very instrumental in this, is that we've been working to transform laws, and 26 states now have a legal entity of a B Corp. So it's not just for profit, it's not just nonprofit, it's for benefit. And instead of forming a C Corp, you can form an LLC, you can form a B Corp, and there's now 600 have been formed in the last 2 years. If you already exist and perhaps haven't been able to sort of create this legal entity, then you can sort of go and get an assessment through and become a certified B Corporation. And there's now 1,000 certified B Corporations, up from just less than 200 5 years ago. So we have this change happening. The other things that's happening is just how we think about wealth and what's aspirational. Right in the 80s, this guy was super awesome. He's got his drop top, he's got his aviators, a pop collar, he's driving a Porsche. But today, what do people do? They Instagram their meals, right? This is a social currency today, it's experience. And we try to think about experience. When I talk to my team, it's not that we're eyewear designers, it's not that we're software engineers, it's that we're experience designers. And we're thinking about the moment that somebody hears about the brand, to their decision to go to one of our stores or our website, to selecting that frame, that discoverable moment that's exciting, to the anticipation of waiting for a pair of glasses, to having those glasses arrive in a small package where you open it and there's a charcoal gray gift box. In that, there's a light gray case, and you open that, and there's this hint of blue. And then the glasses, and you wear them, and you get excited, and hopefully they represent sort of who you are. That pop of blue actually comes from a blue-footed booby, which was actually the first thing that was on our mood board when we were thinking about what does this brand stand for. And the blue-footed booby is, first of all, it's just an awesome name, booby. It brings a smile, I think, to everybody's face. But the idea here is that even to know what a blue-footed booby is, right, you need to be somewhat worldly, interested, right? They're located in the Galapagos. You look at them, they have this quizzical look on their face. They're interested, curious. You scroll down and they have this great sort of black and white sort of tuxedo, so they're sophisticated and sharp. And then you pan down and you see these great blue webbed feet. And it's a little bit of unexpected, it's a little bit of flair, a little bit of pop, a little bit of excitement. So when we were thinking about where can we do our first fashion presentation, we decided to incorporate the blue, but we decided to do it at the New York Public Library, because it was there that we discovered the two early Jack Kerouac characters, Warby Pepper and Zag Parker, for what Warby Parker is named for. And we sent invitations, letterpress that said, shh, come meet us in front of that big building with the lions on it on 42nd and 5th Avenue, because we didn't have permission to actually say the New York Public Library. And in this invitation, we had a vellum sheet with a reading list in it and a New York Public Library card. And we had about 20 editors show up, and we brought them into the great reading room. And at 3:30 on the dot, we had a bunch of models. We had done hair and makeup about a block down the street. They put on their pair of glasses, and they opened these books with the bright blue book jackets on it, inspired by the blue-footed booby. And it created this awesome experience that all these writers and editors wanted to talk about. We've tried to incorporate this into everything that we do and add depth to these stories. So we were thinking, how do we raise awareness across sort of the country, right? We're primarily this New York-centric brand. Let's go on a road trip, very Jack Kerouac of us. And we decided to buy an old yellow school bus. And we got somebody that designs the interiors of yachts and high-end motor coaches to do the interior. with oak shelves and sort of some of our favorite books available for sale. And we call it the Warby Parker class trip, and we had flasks. When you bought a pair of glasses, it actually came in a brown paper bag, just as if you were on an excursion from school. When we decided to open up our first store, this is our flagship on Green Street in Soho in New York, we took that inspiration again from the library. And if you walk in, sort of you see these, where our glasses are displayed are like bookshelves and the book stacks. And we have these rolling ladders from the New York Putnam Ladder Company that was founded in 1901. And if I was designing a store that was just thinking about how do I optimize sales versus optimize for experience, I wouldn't have these long sort of tables that sort of make you think about a library. Because to be honest, they kind of fuck up the flow of the store. But you walk in and it's just aesthetically pleasing. It brings a smile to your face. And my hope is that that's an immediate Instagrammable moment. And we think about as many Instagrammable moments as possible. Another example, we just opened up a store on the Upper East Side on 82nd and Lex in this old pharmacy that had been there for 90 years. They went out of business 2 years ago before we signed the lease, so we didn't sort of kick them out or anything. But we tried to pay homage to this institution, keeping the terrazzo floors and the mezzanine. And again, the hope is that it just grabs you aesthetically. But what was interesting is that of all the press we got, every single article mentioned pneumatic tubes. And this came out of a discussion that we were having because we have sort of our inventories kept in the basement, we have this ground floor, and then we have this mezzanine. And in order to sort of get the glasses up, we were going to have people running up and down the stairs, and we thought, oh, let's incorporate sort of pneumatic tubes. Because kind of like boobies, it's sort of a fun thing to say. And what we did was we built with the point of sale, sort of the moment that sort of a sales associate enters a pair of glasses into sort of our point of sale, it notifies somebody downstairs. They grab the glasses, throw it in the pneumatic tube, shoots up, and we show it to the customer. And they get super excited because the last time they probably saw a pneumatic tube was like going through a bank drive-through or something. But again, it's using perhaps not the highest of technology, but something that's different and unexpected. We try and think about these experiences across all platforms, right? Everybody's talking about mobile first, mobile first, mobile first. And believe me, I believe in mobile first. Our UX designers and our graphic designers are designing for the small screen first, and then we adapt that for the larger screen now. But we need to be thinking about this in terms of a consistent and holistic experience. 83% of our customers that enter our stores visit our website first. So how do we make that website engaging and exciting for them, but also still optimize to try and drive as many web sales as possible? So if there's a thought that we often talk about, it's being experience-focused, but medium-agnostic. And when we're thinking about these experiences and our brand lens, it's always, is it authentic? Is it true to who we are? Is there a narrative? You know, what story are we telling? Do people want to talk about it at the dinner table, right? Everybody wants to sound smart. It's this sort of, again, this Instagrammable moment where this experience, this tidbit, that is the currency of the day. And ultimately, does it do good in the world? So on that note, on the idea of perhaps doing something unexpected, there's a little treat for you guys under your seats, care of PTTOW and Warby Parker. Hope you enjoy that. And you know, if I can leave you with this thought, it's that, you know, let's do good in the world. Let's use all of the hours in the day that we're spending at work to create this positive impact on the world. And that's really sort of thinking about our experiences. And it always has to be value-driven because people can sense and sniff out inauthenticity. So great companies have always been values-driven, but just think about that the values have somewhat changed. So with that, thank you very much. Let's continue the revolution. Thanks, guys.